In a world rushing with noise and distraction, we often forget the quiet power of connection to the earth, to animals, and most importantly, to ourselves. Horse riding is more than a sport. It is a spiritual path, a healing journey that goes beyond the physical. When a human meets a horse, something ancient awakens. This majestic animal does not judge your status, your titles, or your past. A horse mirrors your emotions. It responds to your energy, and through that mirror, you are offered the rare chance to meet your true self. Many people think healing happens in hospitals, clinics, or temples. But there are sacred places outside the walls of tradition, open fields, dirt trails, and stables, where healing takes the form of 4 legs and a heartbeat. Horse riding is not just control, it is surrender. You do not dominate the horse, you dance with it. You do not shout, you listen. You don't conquer, you connect. In that process, you begin to quiet the storms inside. Horses are highly intuitive beings, far more attuned to emotional and energetic states than most humans. Unlike people, they don't listen to your words, they listen to your vibration. They read your body language, your breath, your posture, and even the subtle shifts in your emotions. This is what makes horses such powerful mirrors of the soul. When you approach a horse, it immediately senses your inner world. If you're angry but trying to appear calm, the horse will still react with discomfort or distance. If you're nervous, the horse may become unsettled, even if you smile. But if your breath is steady, your shoulders are relaxed, and your intention is clear and kind, the horse will naturally move toward you and allow itself to trust. This mirroring is not just about safety, it's about awareness. Many people walk through life unaware of the emotional baggage they carry daily. They carry stress in their spine, fear in their gut, tension in their hands, and grief in their chest, but they never stop to notice. The horse forces you to notice. It responds to your emotional state in real time, making you confront what is going on inside you without judgment or shame. Over time, this relationship teaches deep emotional intelligence. You learn that in order to influence the horse positively, you must first regulate your own energy. You cannot hide your emotional truth when you're with a horse. This raw honesty becomes a sacred gift, allowing you to meet yourself as you are, not as you pretend to be. Riding then becomes more than movement. It becomes an internal discipline. It becomes a dialogue between your spirit and the spirit of the horse. And in this dialogue, you are given the rare opportunity to understand yourself more deeply, to release tension you didn't even know you carried, and to find an inner stillness that is rarely accessible in the busy modern world. Being with a horse is like standing in front of a living, breathing reflection of your soul, one that speaks no language but feels everything. In this sacred space, you don't just learn how to ride, you learn how to be. In our fast-paced world, emotions are often misunderstood or ignored. We're taught to suppress our anger, hide our fears, and push through anxiety as if these feelings are weaknesses. But emotions, when misunderstood, become storms within us, storms that can harm not just ourselves, but those around us. Horse riding offers a unique path to master these internal states, not through force, but through balance and awareness. When you ride a horse, you enter into a subtle relationship, one built not on words, but on energy and rhythm. Horses are highly attuned to nonverbal cues. They feel your fear before you speak it. They sense your tension through the reins. If your breath is shallow, if your thoughts are scattered, the horse will reflect that energy and respond with agitation or resistance. In that moment, your lack of control over your internal world becomes externalized. The horse becomes a mirror, showing you what lies beneath the surface, and here lies the quiet wisdom of the practice. To guide the horse, you must first guide yourself. You must learn to observe your own emotions without being overwhelmed by them. You must become calm, not because someone tells you to be, but because the horse will not move with you otherwise. You learn that frustration tightens your muscles, making your seat rough and your hands stiff. You learn that fear shortens your breath and makes your voice tremble. And through that awareness, you begin to transform. You start to breathe slower. You begin to soften your touch. You quiet your mind, not by force, but by choice. Because you begin to feel the difference in the horse's response. The ride becomes smoother, the horse becomes more connected, and suddenly you realize it was never about controlling the horse. It was about mastering yourself. Over time, this process builds emotional discipline. Not the kind that suppresses feelings, but the kind that acknowledges them, holds them gently, and then chooses how to act rather than react. You start bringing this discipline into your everyday life. A moment that once triggered anger now meets a pause. Anxiety that once controlled your breath now meets stillness. You begin to carry the grace of the saddle into your conversations, your challenges, your conflicts. In this way, horse riding becomes more than a physical activity. It becomes a practice of emotional clarity, where you learn not just how to ride, but how to respond to life with grace, awareness, and control. It's not about perfection, it's about presence, and in presence, you reclaim your power. In many areas of life, we're taught that success comes from control over outcomes, over people, over our environment. We are conditioned to believe that strength lies in dominance, in managing every variable, in forcing things to go our way. But horse riding teaches the opposite. It reveals a powerful truth. Connection is stronger than control. And it is this connection that transforms both the rider and the horse. You cannot force a horse to trust you. It does not respond to yelling, to tension, or to the illusion of dominance. A horse, with its massive strength and freedom, loving spirit, simply cannot be controlled by sheer will. And when you try, it resists, not out of defiance, but out of self-protection. You may sit in the saddle, but if there is no trust, there is no harmony. The horse will move, but not with you. This is where the lesson begins. You start to realize that to lead the horse, you must earn its trust. You must show respect. You must speak through body language, energy, and presence, not through force. You must approach with calmness, invite with gentleness, and remain consistent in your intent. It is only through this quiet and respectful consistency that the horse begins to soften and allow you to guide, and what a lesson that is for life. Think of how often we try to force things, relationships, careers, situations, only to find resistance, tension, or collapse. The horse teaches us to let go of this need to dominate. Instead, it shows us that true leadership arises from authentic relationship, from deep listening, from mutual respect, from shared rhythm. The moment you shift from making the horse obey to moving together in flow, everything changes. The ride becomes smoother, the movements align, you no longer feel like two separate beings, you become one. This kind of connection demands vulnerability. You must let down your armor, release your ego, and open your heart. You must learn to feel rather than dictate, to guide rather than command. The bond that forms through this process is quiet, sacred, and unspoken, yet profoundly felt. It is not unlike the connections we long for as human beings, the desire to be seen, to be understood, to be in sync with another soul. Through this sacred relationship with the horse, you realize that true influence doesn't come from force, it comes from trust. And trust can never be rushed or demanded. It must be cultivated with patience, presence, and love. As you grow in your ability to connect with the horse, you grow in your ability to connect with others, and ultimately with yourself. In the chaos of modern living, skyscrapers, deadlines, digital noise, many of us have become deeply disconnected from the natural world. We live in cemented cities, breathe conditioned air, and walk on floors that have long forgotten the earth's touch. We rush from place to place, always in pursuit, always distracted. But in this rush, something vital is lost, our connection to the ground beneath us, to the rhythms of nature, and to the calm wisdom of the earth. Horse riding gently restores this connection. It grounds us back into being. When you ride a horse, you are not just moving across land, you are becoming part of it. The sound of the hooves hitting the soil, the scent of leather and dust, the feeling of the wind brushing past your face, these are not just physical sensations. They are invitations, invitations to return to the present moment, to the primal stillness of the earth, to the ancient relationship between human, animal, and land. A horse is not a machine. It is a living, breathing creature that responds to the natural world. Every shift in the wind, every rustle in the trees, every change in the trail beneath its feet. Riding a horse puts you into alignment with this same alertness. You begin to notice things you had long ignored, the subtle song of birds overhead, the warmth of the sun on your back, the way your breath syncs with the animal's rhythm. Slowly, your senses reawaken. This grounding is not just a nice feeling, it is healing. Scientifically, when we connect with nature, our nervous systems regulate, our stress levels drop, our heart rate slows, cortisol decreases. But beyond biology, something even deeper happens. The constant hum of mental noise begins to fade. The ego, always seeking more, begins to quiet. The mind, usually flooded with past regrets or future worries, finally returns to the now, and in this now, you find clarity. You find calm, you find yourself. Horses, by their very nature, embody presence. They don't live in the past or future, they are always here, sensing, feeling, responding. When you ride, you are invited into this same state. You cannot multitask from the saddle. You cannot scroll your phone, check your notifications, or run through your to-do list. The horse will not allow it. You must be fully present, not just for the sake of the ride, but for the sake of your own peace. Being with a horse in nature becomes a form of active meditation. The movement of the ride rocks you into stillness. The simplicity of the trail becomes sacred. You feel your energy settle, your thoughts soften, your spirit slow down. And perhaps for the first time in days, or even years, you feel truly connected, not to Wi-Fi, not to networks, but to life itself. Confidence is often misunderstood in our modern culture. It is mistaken for loudness, boldness, or unshakable certainty. We associate it with people who speak the most, take the most space, or command attention. But true confidence, the kind that lasts, the kind that nourishes the soul, does not come from proving yourself to others. It comes from facing your fears, understanding your limits, and learning to move through life with grace, resilience, and quiet power. And few experiences reveal this journey more profoundly than riding a horse. At first glance, the very idea of mounting a 1,000-pound animal with a mind of its own can be intimidating. For many, especially beginners, just standing near a horse awakens something primal, a fear of losing control, of being hurt, of not being good enough. These feelings are natural. They are not signs of weakness, but signals of vulnerability. The horse doesn't judge you for them, but it does feel them, and it will reflect them back to you, not with malice, but with honesty. That's where the transformation begins. When you step into the arena or onto the trail, you are not just stepping into a physical experience. You are stepping into a personal confrontation with doubt. The shaky hands, the uncertain movements, the internal voice that says, "What if I can't do this?" These are not obstacles. They are opportunities, opportunities to grow, to breathe through discomfort, to realize that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. With each ride, you learn something more about yourself. The first time you find your balance, the first time you give a cue, and the horse responds. The first time you fall and get back up. These are not just riding milestones, they are life lessons. And slowly, without announcement or applause, something begins to change within you. The fear doesn't disappear entirely, but it loses its grip. In its place rises a quiet confidence, not a voice shouting, "I'm strong," but a deeper voice whispering, "I can face what comes." Horse riding teaches you that real confidence is not built in the absence of challenge, but in the constant meeting of it. It is grown, breath by breath, through patience, repetition, and the willingness to fail without quitting. The horse becomes your partner in this process, not only carrying your body, but helping carry your spirit through self-doubt and into self-belief. And this confidence is not fragile, because it is not borrowed. It is not based on success alone, but on resilience. You learn to trust your instincts. You learn to listen to your body. You learn that you are capable of more than you thought. And these lessons do not remain in the stable. They follow you into every part of your life. Whether you're facing a tough decision, walking into a difficult conversation, or standing alone in the face of adversity, you carry within you the memory of the ride, the time you held the reins, steadied your breath, and moved forward with calmness and courage. Not because it was easy, but because you chose to grow. Trauma is not always visible. It doesn't always wear scars or show itself in broken bones. Often, it lives silently within us, stored in the body, buried in the nervous system, embedded in muscle memory. Trauma changes how we breathe, how we move, how we trust. It disconnects us from our sense of safety, our sense of wholeness, and, in many cases, our own bodies. Traditional therapy can reach the mind, but some wounds lie deeper, in places words cannot go. This is where horse riding becomes more than a practice. It becomes a path to healing. There is a reason why equine assisted therapy has become one of the most powerful and respected forms of trauma healing today. Horses, by nature, offer something that no human therapist ever can: pure presence without judgment. They do not ask questions, they do not diagnose, and they do not expect anything from you. They simply feel. And in that feeling, they provide a sacred space where your nervous system can begin to regulate, sometimes for the first time in years. For individuals who have suffered trauma, whether physical, emotional, or psychological, their relationship with their own body is often fractured. They may feel unsafe inside their skin. They may live in a constant state of hypervigilance or numbness. But when a person approaches a horse, especially in a therapeutic setting, something ancient and instinctual begins to stir. They begin to sense the horse's calm breath, its powerful yet gentle presence, and slowly, their system responds. The rhythm of the horse's movements, the rocking motion of the ride, the steady beat of hooves on earth, it all works together to restore a rhythm of safety inside the body. The horse becomes a co-regulator. It doesn't rush your healing. It doesn't demand your vulnerability. It simply offers its own grounded state, inviting you to match it. Trauma survivors often find it easier to trust a horse before they trust people again. There's no risk of betrayal, no fear of judgment, just a being who sees you, not as damaged, but as present, alive, capable of connection. Riding, in particular, engages the whole body. It requires balance, breath, posture, and awareness. And yet, unlike many other physical activities, it doesn't require performance. You are not trying to win. You are simply trying to stay present. In doing so, you slowly re-establish a sense of embodiment. You begin to reclaim your body not as a place of pain or fear, but as a home. A place you can once again live in with confidence, peace, and trust. This process is subtle and deeply spiritual. It's not about mastering the horse. It's about becoming a partner in motion. As the rider begins to feel the animal's power and grace beneath them, they tap into their own power. not the power to dominate or control, but the power to heal, to connect, and to rise. Trauma fragments us. It disconnects the mind from the body, the heart from trust, the spirit from peace. Horse riding, especially in a therapeutic or mindful setting, becomes a sacred bridge. Through breath, rhythm, movement, and connection, the pieces begin to find their way back to each other. Not in a dramatic moment, but through quiet repetitions, subtle shifts, and the unspoken wisdom of the horse. In a world addicted to speed, noise, and constant stimulation, stillness has become a rare and almost forgotten state of being. We chase productivity, we scroll endlessly, we fill silence with chatter, and we run from any moment that might force us to sit with ourselves. Yet it is in stillness, not motion, where the soul speaks the loudest. And horse riding, though it appears to be a physical and dynamic act, is one of the most profound doorways into that sacred stillness. A horse does not move unless you do, but it also will not move with grace unless your energy is calm and aligned. Before every ride, there is a pause, a moment where you must settle your breath, quiet your thoughts, and become fully present. And within that pause lies a forgotten space where awareness begins to bloom. As you mount the horse and begin to ride, you are required to become conscious of every movement, of your balance, your breath, your posture, and your subtle cues. You cannot be elsewhere in your mind. You must be here now. In that deep focus, your thoughts begin to slow. The usual loops of worry, regret, and anticipation fade into the background. What remains is presence, and in presence, the soul begins to stir. The rhythm of the horse is grounding and hypnotic. The 4-beat cadence of a walk, the floating momentum of a trot, the fluid motion of a canter. They all invite you into a trance-like state of connection, not just with the animal, but with yourself. It is in these moments that time feels suspended. The boundaries between you and the horse begin to blur, and a deeper intelligence awakens within. It's as if your soul, long silenced by the demands of the outer world, begins to speak again, not in words, but in feelings, impressions, and quiet truths. You may find yourself suddenly aware of grief you didn't know you were carrying, or touched by a moment of peace so pure that tears fill your eyes without warning. You may feel a sense of unity with the earth, the sky, the wind, an unexplainable belonging that surpasses logic. These are not coincidences. These are awakenings. The horse is not just a guide on the trail. It becomes a guide into your inner terrain, leading you through layers of the self you may never have met before. Stillness on horseback is not about stopping. It is about being fully alive in motion, yet completely quiet inside. It is a paradox that only becomes clear once experienced, how movement can bring stillness and how stillness can bring transformation. The noise of the world fades, the expectations of others dissolve, and what remains is the truth of who you are, untouched by status, by past, by fear. In this space, the soul doesn't need to shout. It whispers. And in that whisper, you remember things you've forgotten. Your inherent worth, your connection to all life, your strength, your softness, your sacredness. Horse riding becomes a spiritual practice, not through religion, but through reverence for the moment, for the being beneath you, and for the soul within you, patiently waiting to be heard. So, in a world that often tells us to run faster, do more, and push harder, horse riding reminds us to slow down, to breathe, and to listen, not just to the horse, but to ourselves. It teaches us that healing isn't always found in pills or words, but sometimes in hoofbeats and silence, in the still gaze of a gentle creature, and in the sacred rhythm shared between two hearts, one human, one equine. The horse doesn't care what you do for a living, how many followers you have, or what mistakes you've made. It only feels who you are in this moment, and in that pure space, transformation begins, not with force, but with trust, not with control, but with connection. Whether you're seeking balance, recovery, confidence, or peace, The path doesn't always lie in front of a screen or within the walls of a room. Sometimes it lies out there under an open sky, on the back of a horse, in the stillness that awakens your soul. Because at the end of the day, horse riding isn't just about learning to guide a horse. It's about learning to return to your true self, calm, aware, strong, and free.